The segment we're about to have with former college football coach Phil Bennett, David Smoak, Paul Catalina is out today. Craig Smoak here with me as always, and here we go. Where are you and what are you doing, you said to me in a text message?
I'm at the Beverly Hilton in Beverly Hills at the pool enjoying sangria with my wife. So not missing it at all.
I'm very jealous. That is a gorgeous hotel. When the Cowboys were there for a Super Bowl in Century Plaza Hotel.
Yeah, right there.
Right there. But my goodness, good for you and what you're doing. All right, so the top 25 poll came out. I know it means just basically votes, but Georgia trying to become the first team to get to 3 consecutive national titles since, the mid-30s. Minnesota did it. Why is that? Well, one, it's hard to win one, but there have been dynasties, Phil, in the past that had a chance to win 3 in a row and haven't been able to do it.
Well, I think we're going to see this year, Smoak. You've got that quarterback was a much better player. You know, people said, hey, he was a game manager. He's not. This guy's a winner. They don't have that right now. Now, they'll still be good on defense. It's just whether they can bring that same offensive structure. You know, they lost their offensive coordinator. If they win it, then Kirby will go down, in that Saban, Bear Bryant name. But I'm a little bit skeptical of them being able to go through the way they have the last couple of years just because of the turnover.
Coach, how much do you or does the program in general pay attention to that? I mean, I know there's the graphics team that's like, hey, we're number 16 and you want to promote that. But like as a coach, as a team, when you see that, do you use it as a disrespect thing if you're not ranked or you're low, or does it even register at all, really?
Well, I think coaches really stay away from it. I really do. I saw something that Sonny Dykes said, and I thought it was very well put. He said, it's nice to be recognized. He said, but at the same time, this is a can-do business. Art used to say that. You've got to prove yourself week in and week out. And, I look at schools, unfortunately, that we play, Texas, A&M. I mean, A&M started last year, Craig, at I think number 6. Isn't that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And ended up, 5-7. So, I think it's almost like recruiting. As much as I like some of the guys that evaluate recruits, I really didn't care about what they thought about recruits. I mean, nobody had ever heard of Eddie Lackey or Grant Campbell. It's just what you do with it. Now, I tell you, a couple of teams that I looked at that's interesting. I don't know how USC can be number 6. I just don't. After the way they played, until they prove they can play defense, they can't outscore enough people. And I look at that, and I know there's a lot of potential, a great quarterback, but, Tulane crashed on their defense. I look at Penn State. They've never been – James has never got it at that level. And one of the things that I'm really looking forward to watching is seeing with 2 new coordinators is what Alabama does. This is going to be – Alabama has had quarterbacks. Right now, from what I'm hearing from people around, they're not sure who their quarterback is. So it's going to open some doors for maybe some newbies.
Phil, there was a stat that Alabama being ranked 4th, with most programs would love that. This is the lowest they have been ranked in a preseason poll 4 since the year they won the national title back in 2009.
Well, I can see that. I really can. There's a lot of unknowns in this team. Now we all know that Nick will coach the dickens out of him. I think having Kevin Steele back with him will be an easy transition. The young coach Reese from Notre Dame, that's going to be interesting. He's 30. What is he? 31, 32. How's he going to respond in the game when Nick's tearing his ass up? And wanting to do this, wanting to do that. Nick's pretty much had guys there that with Sarkisian and with O'Brien and Dayball that pretty much knew what they were doing. This is going to be a new adventure for Tommy, and it's going to be interesting.
Coach, what are your thoughts on, Michigan and Jim Harbaugh and how they've now positioned themselves the last couple of years after, the long, hard trials of trying to finally overcome Ohio State? They've been able to do that, but they're at 2. Ohio State's at 3. Sets up, obviously for a lot of fun talking. But just what do you think of Harbaugh in general and the way he's run that program and where he has them?
Well, I first of all, I think you're so right, Craig. He has stayed the course. He was getting just beat to death about not being able to beat, Ohio State. He beat him at home. Then this year they go and really, that was a huge game. I don't think people realize after watching the way, Georgia was so lucky to beat Ohio State and to see Michigan dismantle them at, the Horseshoe the way they did said a lot about what he's building there. Now, what I'm not a fan of is this deal with the NCAA. He's being hard-headed, and I think it's going to affect his team if he doesn't get some resolution fast. He's got 4 games. He was supposed to be suspended. Now the NCAA committee said, no, we're not doing that. He wouldn't admit to anything. And in this business, it's pretty obvious that they have the goods on him. And he better make a decision what's best for this team and get it over with and get going, or it could be a long year.
Is this one of the few times right now that the NCAA has the bat and they can swing it? Because it doesn't seem like they have much clout anymore.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. With this reorganization, with the conferences, they feel like they have to step up. I know that. They really do. And if you look across, Smoak, Florida State was denied an appeal on a somewhat, transfer from Miami. North Carolina was denied an appeal, but that were usually just, done. And yes, and answer your question, I think they had said, you know what, enough's enough. We're still the NCAA. You have taken an oath to abide by our rules under our guidelines, or you won't coach or you won't play. And I think, Jim is a different guy. I've known him since he was a player with the Bears. But at the same time, great leaders do what's best for the whole and not the few. And he's got to really make a decision. Ward Manuel has got to get involved and says, hey, this is bigger than you. We've got to get this. And they do. They have a chance to have one of those years where this might be their year. And you sure don't want your ego and your bravado to affect, what it could do for your school.
Coach, how similar is what Josh Heupel does offensively to what you saw for so many years under Art Briles and what, obviously was very successful here in Waco for a long time?
Well, Craig, it's the same offense. Jeff Levy put it in. Jeff put it in at Central Florida, and he's done a good job with it. And but it's Art's offense, and and if you watch it, tempo. I watch them play. I can almost call their plays, so he's done a good job with it. The thing that he's done that I don't think a lot of people recognize, he didn't go part way with it. When Jeff put it in there, he'd been at Missouri. If you remember, he was there as a coordinator, gets the UCF job, hires Jeff, and he tells him, he goes, I want to run with, we ended up getting him fired at Oklahoma, if y'all remember that. He was trying to do what they did, and they ended up, hiring Lincoln after him, and he ends up going to Missouri. And when he hired Jeff, he went, which I applaud him, he went all the way in, and he's done a good job with it. And you know what? He knows it's quarterback driven. It's good. The offensive line, everything is, it's offensive line friendly because you get a lot of throws quick. And now it does stress your defense a little bit. And I thought last year that their defense probably didn't get the credit they deserve, because I watched them at the end of the year against Clemson, and they really played well on defense.
Phil, what is the difference between what Art kind of became like the master scientist with what he did with that offense and the air raid?
Well, the air raid is a sideline to sideline, crossers. Everything's tied into a different. If you do this, we do this. Art's big deal. Art was a vertical passing game, and the air raid does throw the ball vertically. But the thing that people fail to realize about us and Art Browse at Baylor, I think I'm right on this. One year, I think we had 3,000 yard rushing.
Mm-hmm.
We were a physical football team, and I'm talking about we would get our H-backs / fullbacks. I mean, we played a lot of 12 personnel. If you remember, one of the highlights of my career is when we came back against TCU in 2014, and Gary hadn't been able to stop us. So, Gary always says, well, there wasn't a lot of good defense played that game. Well, listen, we gave up 440 yards. They gave up almost 800.
Mm-hmm.
So that we were better than they were without question. But at the end of the game, we got in too tight. We had to kick a field goal or score, and we ran the same play like 9 times in a row, and they could not stop us. And they were really a good defense.
Yeah, because you got 10, 12 yards at a time, so the clock would stop.
Yeah. Our offensive line, I don't know if you remember this, but one time they took Shock and they rode him 10 yards. I mean, we drove them back 10 yards. And to see the frustration on them and watch it, that's what the difference was with Art. Our ability to run the ball and the physicality of how we did it. And of course, Randy Clements is the best there is, and we didn't run a ton of gap schemes. We were a zone and a insert team, and it was very physical. I mean, our H-back guys had to be physical, and we were able to play and really cause people. And then you throw in the vertical game and the quick game, the nows, the bubbles, to Corey Coleman, to all the different people, and it was hard to defend.
I know it's just a preseason poll in the long run, Coach, but, TCU to be at 17, given all that they lost, was kind of surprising to me. I think it's right. I think they're going to be really good again. But, it just seems like, I don't know, it seems like everything's kind of clicking for them at the moment. Do you get that sense as well, that this is kind of the way that it's set up with Sonny now is they can lose a lot of talented players, but especially in this portal era, their location, all the bells and whistles, that they're a team that can just reload rather than rebuild?
Well, I think it's, my thought, Craig, it's going to be determined. It's yet to be determined.
Gotcha.
I thought last year, let's be honest, the majority of those kids were Gary Patterson kids.
Oh, yeah.
And that staff previous. People, let's give credit where credit's due. And with that said, I thought Sonny and his staff came in, did a great job of managing them, doing it. I think it's really going to be interesting. You go back and there were some close games. The Baylor game, I mean, they very easily could have lost that game to Baylor. They could have lost to Oklahoma State. I mean, there were some close games, and their quarterback was the difference maker. We're going to see if Morris, he's always been touted as a potential guy. Can he be that guy? And I think that becomes crucial. Same thing with Baylor. You look at Baylor last year, close games. Is he going to be a guy? And are they going to be good enough on defense with a new coordinator that's never called defense? I think Aranda, without question, has to be involved more on their defense than they ever have. So, but I think they're all talented, and it's going to be exciting to watch them, and see how it evolves.
Make a couple of calls during your spare time drinking another sangria. Mike Smith, who's a transfer linebacker from Liberty, is apparently having a hellacious camp, and he had a pretty good spring. He's a linebacker for them, but he seems to be very disruptive, and I know you could probably do some due diligence on finding out. He came from Liberty, so that's something they obviously needed somebody there. So last thing, you mentioned Art. He's going to be coaching in a new league. He's been a part of that team in Italy. He's been coaching that team, but he's going to have an opportunity with this international league. Your thoughts? Have you talked to him about it?
We've missed each other. I've been gone. He's called me, and I called him back and missed him. But I'm excited for him. He's still got a lot to offer. I have not given up hope on his situation. He just, I told somebody that. I said, hell, he goes to Italy and wins the championship. He has the it factor, and I don't know anything about this league, but I know they got a hell of a coach, and I hope it's fun for him. And of course, being in Dallas is probably great. And I see that they got some other old guys. I'd say old guys. Hell, I'm old too, but Mummy and different guys like that. I think Rolovich, the coach at Washington State, is involved in it. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Nick Rolovich, yep.
I'm always open for guys like that enjoy football. It's the best game going, and I hope it's a good deal for him, and I hope him and Jan have a blast doing it.
What about if he needs a defensive coordinator?
You know what? He might have to come to Beverly Hills and talk to me.
Hey, enjoy what you're doing, man. Congratulations on getting away. Thank you, Coach.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Phil Bennett, former longtime college football coach. His